Okay. And I'm so happy to see you. I'm happy to see people saying hello in the chat. I hope you enjoyed getting settled this morning. I wanted to take a second just to introduce myself. I think I know most of you, but just in case not, I am Tom Capretta. I'm the project coordinator at the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center at the Ohio State University, and I have been a part of this network for the last 4-ish years, I believe, maybe even a little longer than that. And I'm happy to be your host for the day. If you have any questions, concerns, anything throughout the day, feel free to use the chat to get to me directly. You can email me, you can text me if you have my phone number, anything that you need. It's good to meet you all. I'm going to ask you really quick, though, to say hello. I know that a bunch of you already said hello. Introduce yourself, where you're from. I would love if you could do your name, region, and if you could add this part too, the number of years you've been with the network, and please identify yourself if this is your first network meeting or if you're returning or something. I would love to hear about it. So I want to give a welcome back to most people, greet new people. And I want to tell you how excited I am to be working alongside all of you again this year to ensure that we are best equipped to support families and educators to work together to guide students to a direct trajectory of opportunity and success. So here we are. Before I introduce the director of our center to give some remarks, I just want to ground us in the mission of this group that we have together. So the Ohio Family and Community Engagement Network is a group of dedicated education professionals from across Ohio, comprised of representatives from each of Ohio's regions, along with organizations whose work supports families of diverse learners, including students with disabilities. The network collaboratively researches, develops, and supports the implementation of tools and strategies for regional teams and school districts to effectively engage and empower families and communities. Through the network's activities to support strong family-school partnerships, family and community needs and strengths are recognized and prioritized at every level, resulting in improved student and family outcomes and better school climates. We are here to move that needle for families and students with disabilities by working with schools, and I'm excited to be talking about that with you. I want to introduce right now someone you probably all know. Oh, forgot about this. Remember last year? Here's one of our silly pictures. See yourself up in there. That'll be on our website all year long for you to admire yourself and your colleagues in our silliness. But I do want to introduce Dr. Barbara Boone, who I think you all know, who is the director of our center at the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center, to talk a little bit about the network.
Either Barb's muted or
Yes.
I can't hear.
Yes, thank you for pulling that up. I was trying to tell her, but I was also muted.
Barbara has a new headset, so there's all
Can
sorts
you all
of
hear
fun
me now?
like this. Yeah.
Hey, welcome, Dr. Boone.
Yay. Let me see. Can you all also hear my, how about now? Still good? All right. Well, okay. I have a new headset. They're very comfy and I'm still learning how to work them. All right. So here's all the things I was saying about all of you as my mouth was going back and forth, is that this is exciting for me to be able to see familiar faces, colleagues. It's always one of my favorite days of work of the year to get started together again after we've had some time off together. I think it's also because I feel like I'm with kindred spirits as well as colleagues, right? And you all really, I feel so supported in my work personally and the work of our team, and just sort of hearing from you all and seeing and the work that you do and being able to work together. So this is always a privilege to kick this off. It always makes me reflect back to the first time I met all of you 8 years ago. And we sat together and introduced ourselves for the first time. And since that time have been able to really become a community of practice and a community that is really a part of a systems of support for family engagement in Ohio. So, and welcome to new folks. If you're new, I just want to say, I'm counting on this being a great experience for you, a place where you feel supported, where you have some fun, where you you feel like you have the support, get supports that you need in your work as you work with districts and with families. So we do a lot of things. We're such a productive group. I'm always amazed at the end of the year to see all the things that our small groups, our small work groups pull together as well. So just, it's always a privilege to be with all of you. And thanks for making the time to, and the space in your calendars and in your schedules to be here today and to be a collective and sort of that more how working together we can accomplish things that we can't do on our own. So I'm just grateful for today and Tom's leadership. And so I'm going to stop talking now and let us get on with a good day.
Thank you so much. And I just can't say how excited I am to be here. And I love a word you said, a collective. I think of this network community practice as a collective too, and think of the great work that's come out of here. It's really is this collective experience and this collective work of professionals driving this family and community partnership forwards in Ohio, which is exciting. I did want to pause just for a second before we get too far down the road here to invite people. I saw a couple people in the chat said it was their first meeting. I tried to write a couple of you down, so I'm going to call on you, and if you could just give a brief introduction of yourself to the team, and I'm sure you'll get to know a lot of the rest of us over the time, but just want to give the floor to some of the new faces here to introduce themselves. And one of the new faces and that I noticed in the chat was Carolyn. I was wondering if you'd like to introduce yourself briefly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Carolyn Head, and new but not new. New first time to the network meeting, and really looking forward to being a part of this group. Retired from the State Department of Education back in 2012 after 30 some years of work with special education. Did quite a bit of work with family engagement and oversight of the Parent Mentor Project during that time. So back from retirement again, and now working with State Support Team 11 consultant, and I will be the lead family engagement person through State Support Team 11, and really looking forward. I saw the list of names this morning, and I do recognize quite a few people. So looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're glad to have you. I'm really excited about the experience you bring to our collective, to our network. Next, I think I saw Katie. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Katie Marshall. I'm new this year to State Support Team 13. I've had various roles over the years, trained as a school psychologist, then went on to administration as assistant principal, then director of special education, and then was a consultant at Hamilton County Educational Service Center as well. So this is my learning year, so I'm excited to learn everything I can, especially in attending a lot of these sessions and getting to know all of you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we look forward to your perspectives and your experience as well. I saw another in there, Gwendolyn from Ocala. Are you with us today?
Gwendolyn, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Gwen Harsha. I am the program director for Ocali's Family and Community Outreach Center. I actually started in July, but I've been partnering with Ocali for a number of years. I've been an autism advocate, and I've worked as a parent mentor, an unofficial parent mentor through different organizations, through aspirations, and just individually with friends and family. And I'm very, very excited to be attending this meeting.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. We love our friends at Ocali, and we love growing that connection and all the great resources that you bring. So welcome and thank you. I was speed reading the chat, so I just want to ask if anyone else am I missing who's new this year that would like to introduce themselves. Okie dokie. Well, if you are new and I missed you, feel free to stop me at any point, but I didn't see anyone turn on the microphone or anything, so I'm gonna keep on plugging away if that's okay. So I got our agenda up on the screen here, and we do have a jam-packed day. I'm really excited about the day. We're gonna jump straight into some learning this morning, which I'm really excited about. Something that I think is really useful and impactful, and something that you could share with districts kind of right away at the beginning of the year to help kind of organize their thinking around things. But before that, we are going to have a couple minutes to break out and get to know each other a little bit more, just catch up, chit chat, have a little icebreaker. We'll have some updates from our network partners. We're lucky to have people like Gwendolyn from Ocali and the coalition, as well as people from the Ohio Department of Education stop by to give updates. And so we'll get to hear some of those if in a few minutes. Then we're going to hear about MTSS and the return to school, and Hadley Bachman and Dr. Barbara Boone have been on the MTSS trail, out on the presentation trail, talking about MTSS and family engagement. We're really excited to share some of that learning with you and inform how you can work with districts on those topics. Then we are going to hear about Indicator 8 survey results in the afternoon, which is really exciting. Our charge, of course, is to support the needs of students with disabilities and their families. So this data is crucial to kind of where we head this year as a network. So really excited about that. And then we'll discuss some work groups, which we're always excited about. Some of the most productive things that we get to collaborate on in this network is in these work groups, and they have really picked up steam the last couple of years, creating really useful products for schools, districts across our state. So hopefully that is exciting agenda for you, and we're going to get right into it here. So we're going to have some time to have some icebreakers. We'll break out for about 8 to 10 minutes, depending on kind of how people are chit-chatting, how people are feeling. It's easy. We're going to ease into this meeting, right? School's just starting. We're just seeing each other for the first time in a couple months, most of us, and got some new people out there. We did have a brief reprieve in this in this pandemic, and I think some of us maybe were able to do things this summer that we weren't able to do last summer, things of that nature. So I'm wondering if you'd like to share something that you did this summer that felt somewhat normal, or something that you got to take on this summer that you didn't do last summer. We're going to break up just into some random groups here in a second. So if that's cool with everyone, I'm going to keep this train moving. If you get that invitation, feel free to join that room. Hi, Gary. We are in breakout rooms. We're not that far into it. Would you like to jump in and say hello to people?
Sure, I'll be brave.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
No problem. Welcome back, those of you coming back in. I hope you had a good chance to catch up with your friends and colleagues. Feel free to keep that conversation going in the chat. Welcome back. If you heard something particularly cool that happened this summer, feel free to throw it in the chat. Shout out your colleagues doing cool stuff. Shout out yourself doing cool stuff. Love to hear it. Just to keep on keeping on, for those of you that are new or don't really remember like where places we put things or whatever, just wanted to take a quick second, sorry about that, to show you a couple things that are important for the year, where things will be, how to access stuff. Oh, I remember this, forgot that. First of all, we have a website, right? So we head to Ohio familiesengaged.osu.edu, and if you look in our networks here, family FCE network, excuse me, is right down here, and you click on that, and then you get here and it's like, oh no, there's a login. The login is just network member, all lowercase, in case you forgot. Just throwing that in there. I click there. I got it saved in my computer because I go here all the time, but you'll see our lovely faces. Then you will see some documents that you might need throughout the year, schedules, contact lists. We have some self-assessment tools that haven't been updated in a second, but they could still be good starting points for thinking about where your work is at. If you want to talk about that further, we are always available to you as your partners to provide assistance. So anytime you're thinking about your practice holistically or planning in your region, feel free to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to Barbara, and we can aid that as well. We have some translated special education guides that have been helpful in the past. We can get some more of those as well. But the way it will look is we'll have our meeting records and stuff. Afterwards, we'll put the video up of the recording in case you want to revisit parts and stuff. And as you see here, while we will have presenters, you know, putting links in the chat and stuff like that, at any time during the day, if you need to access any meeting material, it'll all be right here, slides, agendas, worksheets, whatever. So go there. If there was stuff from last year that you remembered, or the year before even, and you're like, oh dang, where'd that go? We have put together archives that look exactly like this. We basically just crystallize what this looks like at the end of the year and put it aside so we can start fresh, but all this stuff still exists. You can click on either of these links to go to the network years and see what we worked on then. If you want to revisit presentations, remember tools or anything from there. So check that out. Another really important thing that we'd like to make, that I'm going to make actually a concerted effort for myself as well to visit a lot more this time, is our Edmodo page. I'm always amazed how much great stuff gets shared here and how many good conversations start. And frankly, you know, sometimes I forget about it and don't visit it that often. I'm definitely going to make an effort to stop by here at least once a week for this network year, share some stuff that we're working on, hear about what you all are doing. But if you're not familiar, basically it's like a Facebook group, but just not on Facebook, for stuff that we share. You can see a couple of days ago, I shared our district needs assessment for family engagement that Hadley and I worked on over the last year or so. could be a really good tool if people haven't really been thinking critically about how they're setting up their family engagement stuff. Hopefully they have, since school's like starting now. But in case you need that tool, right here, I'm a little sad, didn't get any likes. Feel free to jump on there, check it out, give me a like, make me feel better. But something to note about this, if you are new, which I know who you are, wrote your names down, plus I got the contact list and stuff. I still got to get you your emails in here. Basically what's going to happen is I'll put your email in here. You'll get an email from Edmodo that sends you the link to our closed group. So that's how you access here. And like you said, you go through here, we share stuff that's happening at our center. Always see people putting other stuff from their work in here too. So feel free to stop by there, and I'm going to make it a priority to kind of keep the conversation going outside of here. So if anyone has any questions about those things, feel free to throw them in the chat. I can address them really quick. But if not, we have some partner updates to get to as well. Cool. We'll keep moving. If you ever forget links about for that stuff, we got it in the PowerPoints here. You can click around, bookmark those. I would make a recommendation. I've been in the multiple Edmodo groups for years. I have bookmarks for all of them. Edmodo can be slightly difficult to like navigate around between groups, so you might want to make a bookmark for that or save that stuff. But just a little tip there. Nothing too crazy. But we do want to get into our partner updates now. Really exciting time for us to get to hear from our partners. It's been almost 3 full months, almost 4 months. We want to hear what happened over this summer. So I think I saw one of our colleagues from the department step in here, our friend and colleague Tracy, and I was wondering if you had some time to give updates today.
Good morning. I do. So over the summer, all of the updates for the operating standards were passed, so they should be going into effect shortly. They are still going through some other approval processes, but there should be updates to the Ohio operating standards shortly. With that there came new updates to the PBIS restraint and seclusion rule, and as part of that update, there is now a complaint process that the department has for restraint and seclusion issues. So if anything occurred after, I believe it was July 9th, but I could be wrong on the date, you can file, or anybody can file, not anybody, parents specifically can file a complaint against a district regarding inappropriate use of restraint or seclusion, and then the dispute resolution section of ODE will investigate that. The surrogate parent training is currently being reviewed by ODE's communication team. That should be up and running by October. And then when it comes to, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. When it comes to transition, ODE and our agency partners are rolling out a new program called Establishing Families as Partners in the Transition Planning Process learning series at the district level. And it will include the development of community practice for people who are trained with Amy Samansky last spring. Amy is going to be sending out an email in September explaining the steps that are going to go into the community of practice meetings that start in October. And the Ohio Employment First Task Force will also release, it starts with Families Guide in September. That is about bringing awareness to reach families across Ohio about transition. And those were all of the updates that I had.
Cool, we appreciate it, Tracy. Any questions for Tracy while she's here?
I just have one quick question. This is Helen from SST8. With the new surrogate parent training, because we really have difficulty getting surrogate parents, will people that already have been certified through the old training, we know they need the new training, will they need to go back and do the new training?
I believe so, but I will reach out just for confirmation.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Well, if other questions come up, I know there's a lot of information, very exciting information for us. Feel free to throw it in the chat and we'll get those to Tracy and get it back to you. I know I'm very excited to take the surrogate parent training like the day it comes out. So we've been really looking forward to that. So thank you so much, Tracy.
No problem.
Thanks. Looking forwards, I'm wondering if I think I saw Larissa here. You have any updates for us from the coalition, Larissa?
I have a couple of updates. Thanks for having me this morning. So we are up and running, starting our new school year, which should be another interesting year, as all of you know. We have a couple new staff members that have joined us this year. Erin Hinkle, she's going to be covering the west central area of Ohio. And then we also have Elizabeth Rivero, and she's going to be covering our multicultural families in the Southwest Ohio region. We are collaborating with SST4 and doing the Stephen Gill presentation. We started that last spring, and there's 3 sessions that are left on September 9th, 16th, and October 7th. I believe, though, that the registration is closed for that, but we do have those 3 sessions left. We are going to be presenting, there's several different staff members that are going to be presenting at OcalaCon, virtually, obviously. So look for us at those different sessions. And then we also have a speaker series coming up with doctors from Nationwide Children's Hospital. And there's a series, I'm not exactly sure, I want to say there's 4, but don't quote me on that. We do have a flyer, which I will get to you so that you can pass out, if that's okay, Tom, send out to everyone. But the last of that series is going to be Michael from Michael's Journey, and he's going to talk about his transition to self-advocacy. So that's the updates we have so far, and I'm looking forward to a new school year and just collaborating with all the different agencies and families and crossing our fingers for a good year. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And it's always great to hear from the coalition, such an important group for our work, working with students with disabilities and their families. So glad to be plugged into everything you all are doing. Thanks a lot. Hi, Michelle, are you with us today? Would you like to give an update from O'Callie's Outreach Center for Deafness and Blindness?
Yes, thank you. For those of you who are new, I'm Michelle Motel. I'm the Family Support Liaison for the Outreach Center for Deafness and Blindness at O'Callie. So I work with Gwen, and I am deafblind myself. So always good to say my name if you're trying to address me. The Outreach Center has done a lot of professional development this year, and all of that is available on our website. So if anyone in your district has students or families working with children who are deaf, hard of hearing, or blind, visually impaired, there's a lot to learn. So we have the telesite webinars. So that's how do you do psychological assessments remotely? And so we have 3 episodes, I want to call them, in that series. And then we have a literacy series called Ask Abby that is available on our website, and that's for deaf, hard of hearing children. And that is going to be continuing this upcoming October. It seems like a lot of people are hiring on new employees, and we're no exception. We too just hired someone new onto the Outreach Center for Deafness and Blindness team. Her name is Angelica Gagliardi, and she is our deaf, hard of hearing specialist. And that's really exciting. She's a teacher of the deaf, and she worked at Cleveland Metro Schools for a while. And yeah, really exciting. And then also in October, the Outreach Center is launching a new video series. It's called Yes We Can, Journey Towards Independence. And I'm going to be in it. And it's just demonstrating possible ways that a person with deafness or blindness can lead a independent, quality life, and examples on how to do that with deafness or blindness. A lot of self-advocacy, and also using elements from the expanded core curriculum, also known as the ECC, or I've heard some places call it the hidden curriculum. And a lot of those are just fundamental life skills. Academics is very important, but how is a person with disabilities going to be successful once they leave school? Where are they going to live? Is the assumption that they're going to live with their parents? There are other options and various just skills and supports to learn. So I'm excited about that. That'll be coming out on October 27th. And it's also going to include, the first part will be recorded, and then the second part will be live question and answer. So I'll be there, and hopefully with some partners to answer any questions that families might have, or students themselves, and the professionals who are serving those families and students and children. And as, what's her name, Erin? As she mentioned, OCaliCon. Yeah, OCaliCon's coming up. So I encourage all of you to sign up. Thanks. Those are my updates.
Thanks, Michelle. One thing that came up in the chat, if you wouldn't mind,
Please do.
someone was wondering if you could share Angelica's whole name in the chat so we could have it for our records.
Yes, how about I just plop the email address in there?
That's perfect.
Yeah, which will include her name. Yes, please do. She's wonderful to work with.
That's great to hear. Thanks for those updates.
Thank you, Tom.
On to the next one. I wanted to, I know I gave you a second to introduce yourself before, Gwen. Just wondering if you want to talk briefly a little bit more about your work or had any updates. If not, you can tell me to skip you. Don't worry.
I hadn't prepared a speech, but I am looking forward to the next meeting in September that I'll have a more in-depth introduction. But basically, I'm, like I said, I'm so excited to be with Ocali. I've been working on my own regarding family and community outreach in the Autism Society. And there's going to be a big focus, without going into all the details. My son has autism. He has discovered music. He plays the guitar. He actually plays in a band. And our growth through going to open mics and different events has really assisted him in his social growth. So a big focus of mine with the center is going to be socialization and adding to that. I mean, the educational piece, obviously everything you guys do is so important, but I want to add the social piece as well. But I'll have more information in the next meeting.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your work. That's really exciting. And it's great to hear a little bit more about you. And I am sorry for putting you on the spot there,
No
but
problem.
I appreciate you. So that's actually going to bring us to a little pause. I know it's a little early in the meeting, but we're flying, we're feeling good. I want to give people about 10 minutes to stretch their legs. And when we get back, we're about to hit the books hard with Hadley and Barbara talking about MTSS and family engagement. So refresh your coffees, step to the bathroom, and we'll be back here in just 10 minutes. Well, unfortunately, we have to let Mr. Sam and Mr. Dave rest for a little while, but not too unfortunately, because we are rolling right into a awesome presentation, not lunchtime yet, from Hadley Bachman and Dr. Barbara Boone about coaching from multi-tiered approach to family engagement. So I encourage you to get settled, get ready to engage in that learning. I also just want to remind you on the network webpage that I showed earlier in the day, all of the materials, the slides, and some accompanying materials for this presentation are available there. So I'll turn it over to our esteemed presenters. Thank you all.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to make sure you can see my slide. Everybody can see that? Great.
Okay. So, well, welcome to this part of the meeting where Hadley and I are going to be presenting a new tool for you to enhance coaching conversations that you have with schools or with others about building a multi-tiered system of support for family engagement. So this is kind of like a little PD section of this time together. And in this time, we're going to share with you a new guide that we've created for coaching district and school level planning for family engagement using this multi-tiered system of support approach. So we have asked, it's really interesting, we have been asked to present this concept, this approach, and these tools now in Iowa and in Washington and Michigan and in Delaware, and it's really interesting, the interest and the how it's fitting in for folks. So we're really glad to bring it to you all today. And we're thinking about you as coaches, and we're confident really that this resource is going to be really plug and play for you. We think that it's going to be something you're going to be able to take and use readily, like use it tomorrow. So, but what I'm going to ask you to do is just to really lean in. I know during our meetings, sometimes I'm tempted to kind of check email and that sort of thing. And so during this time, if you just sort of really lean in, participate, and kind of be fully here, we really love for you just to be able to really kind of get the full experience and really get with this this tool and this approach. So we're really excited to share it with you.
So specifically, we are going to be learning how to coach for collaborative, trusting homeschool partnerships by applying an MTSS approach to family engagement to raise student achievement. We're going to be working on explaining how implementing a multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS, for family engagement creates opportunity for all. We'll be describing how the roles for families in a multi-tiered system of support model and integrating a MTSS approach to family engagement into our coaching.
So today, we're considering a multi-tiered system of supports approach to family engagement with a broad focus, not age or content specific. We know that applying a multi-tiered system of support approach, or that lens to family engagement, is applicable to PBIS, school improvement planning, early literacy planning, and any initiative, any sort of work of our schools. And today we're going to speak sort of in broad terms so you can use it in sort of an overarching way of applying this approach to family engagement. So we're viewing a multi-tier system of support as a data-driven system to organize your family engagement interventions and supports so we can apply them planfully and to maximize outcomes for all students.
So today we're introducing this multi-tiered approach to family engagement. And our goal is that all families not only have the opportunity, but can and do engage with the school through differentiated practices that meet the needs of each family. In this model, we categorize our practices, services, and supports into different tiers, which we then make available to families flexibly based on their needs in a given situation. Barbara and I want to be clear, we are not going to be assigning families to tiers. So instead, we are planning proactively to adapt our approaches to family engagement so that each family is supported. Families will need different levels of support at different times and in different situations. Barbara and I have found this to be true in our own families. You know, we may have everything figured out in one situation, then in another situation, we may want to engage more deeply with the school, or we may have more concerns, or we may have more needs that need to be met. So this is really about schools being able to flexibly adapt to the family's needs in any situation. So our model is expansive. The purpose is to widen our practices so that all families have opportunity. Tier 1 supports, or Tier 1 family engagement strategies, are core and universal strategies linked to whole child support. So Tier 1 strategies are the universal school or program-wide support system for all families. Tier 1 establishes school culture and communicates expectations for behavior and learning. Effective universal support should meet the needs of most families. So you can really think about this with and talk about this with the districts that you work with, that at least 80% of families should be effectively engaged through these Tier 1 universal strategies, or the school should really review and revise whether their approach to family engagement at the universal tier is actually universal enough. Then Tier 2 supports are more targeted. So Tier 2 supports are programs and strategies, engagement opportunities for groups of families who need additional support or want to be engaged at a deeper level. Families receive targeted supports or opportunities based on their situation that are more intense or more frequent. Remember, we don't have a Tier 2 family, we have Tier 2 engagement as needed. And then Tier 3 supports are more intensive. So this is for a very small number of individual families with unique situations who need engagement beyond Tier 1 supports or strategies. So Tier 3 engagement strategies are intensive programs for families with highly individualized needs. These supports are designed to meet the family's specific need at a particular point in time. No matter what tier, the overall goal in this work with families is to develop expanded homeschool partnerships to support learning and healthy development for all students. So what indicates a need to change levels in our approaches with working with families? So it could be a school, family, student, community issue, or initiative. So for example, we might create a plan like this if we have a new school policy or initiative based on student outcomes. And we may create a plan for how we would engage families in this plan. Or perhaps something happens in the community, like a much used community organization closes. You know, we had libraries close recently. And so we might create a plan for engaging families in such a situation. Or we may have family requests for additional counseling services, or we might have student data that shows a pattern of certain subgroups of students scoring disproportionately lower on assessments. All of these would be indicators that we would need to change levels in our strategies for family engagement. Our plan should identify decision indicators that give us a metric for when the current practices we're using are not enough or not a good fit based on the data that we have, student data or family data. Changing levels would mean a change, could mean a change of intensity, so how deeply we're engaging, or it could be a change of dose or frequency, how frequently we're engaging with families, or it could mean a total change of practice. So some kids and their families need more intense support, but sometimes it's not a matter of more intensity, right? It's that a practice that a school district is using isn't working for some families or for many families, and they need to change. So this is all about being adaptive and flexible to create opportunity for all. To answer your question, Stacy, yes. So we would create decision rules for scaling up supports or for scaling up engagement opportunities, and we're going to demonstrate how that works in just a moment.
And for scaling down, or you know, for moving.
Yeah, absolutely. So supports can be long or short term, depending on the situation. So for example, a house fire might lead a family to move into a hotel, and that would require different supports for that family for that period of time, but that's not going to be permanent. It could be longer term or shorter term, depending on that particular situation. And then the primary goal is to be responsive and supportive. So just like how we expect teachers to be responsive and supportive to students, to not just do one thing and expect every student to be able to engage with the material in the exact same way, we can't expect students and families to fit into one mold of family engagement either.
So I'm assuming for all of you that sounded familiar. We apply that to instruction, we apply that to behavioral supports, you know, we think about decision indicators, we have programs in place. So here's where we want to also say that what's essential to this is that families are essential partners in a multi-tiered system of support. And so we think there are different roles for families in this system as well. So first, we'd like to sort of share with you that families are initiators of a multi-tiered system of support. They can be an initiator by requesting services, saying, you know, my child is here. I'd like them to receive core instruction. You know, my child is placed here. I'd like them to be placed there, right? We have families leaning in and saying, this crisis happened in our family. I need support. Right? So families are initiators for their own children. They could also sort of alerting folks to their child's needs, requesting services, and also just for saying, you know, even programmatically, like what do we have in our school to support these broad needs? So families are initiators. Again, families, I would say, are co-designers in this. They're team members. We think individually, their own child's IEP planning, in their own child, supporting them in their child's self-advocacy in their post-secondary transitions. So sort of individually, but also on our PBIS teams, on our school improvement teams, in providing feedback and input in co-designing this multi-tiered system of supports. We don't want to design this guessing what families needs, right? They should be informing the design of our family engagement supports. They're also receivers of supports. So we think about that family that had the house fire, right? So we need supports. We have a family who experiences an accident, and now my child is going to need to have different mobility issues, maybe as a result of an injury or other things. So we have families that are receiving supports from the school academically, behaviorally. They might be receiving sort of very basic needs supports. So receivers of supports as well. And I think sometimes we might get stuck and think that is the only role for families, right? What are we going to do for families? What are their needs? How can we meet them? Let's build a system of supports. As opposed to families being co-designers, initiators, and also receivers of support. And then another thing I would say, families are providers of supports, right? Here's what the school is going to do. Here's what I'm going to do at home. We're working together on this. And I'm telling you, hey, this does work at home. Let's try it at school. So families inform the programs and the planning around a multi-tiered system of support. They may be providing a reading intervention that matches the reading intervention their child is receiving at school. So families are providers of supports. They could also be providers of supports to other families. And then a final way is we feel like families are evaluators, that they offer a perspective that our school personnel don't have, reporting on the goodness of fit for their own child, for others, on their satisfaction, on their home experience, recommendations for improvement, accessibility, their feedback, this feedback that we get from families and their evaluation of our systems of support is really critical. So we see multiple roles for families. All right, so now here's what we'd like to do with all of you. You've got a link here to look at the guide that we have prepared. And what we'd like to do is sort of walk through with you. We don't have this planned. We're going to walk through with you a building of a multi-tiered plan. So in your role as coaches and consultants with districts, we know you have lots of opportunities to walk alongside a district as they plan for special education services, school improvement, PBIS, other topics. And we know that your SST is sort of already working to integrate family engagement across initiatives. Our hope is that this facilitator guide is going to be a tool that you can use to coach the embedding of family engagement strategies in school improvement PBIS plans with a structure of a multi-tiered system of support. So we're going to demonstrate how to facilitate a discussion with a school or a district as they develop their plan for engaging families. And in this example that we have here today, the district is going to, they want to improve student attendance. All right, we know that raising our attendance rates, we heard from the superintendent at the SST Institute, right? We have chronic absenteeism. We see huge inequities in that we need to address. We see kindergarten and high school being high. You know, we need to roll up our sleeves and work on this. So we think about, and we know that that's happening at the classroom level and the building level and the district level. And so we want to build this together. So let's get started. You can follow along with the facilitator guide, and I'm also going to be using the guide in our sort of practice scenario here. So as I get started, any questions here? I hope you've been able to access the guide. If you don't want to, if you just kind of want to participate right now, great. If you'd like to be sort of following along with the facilitator guide, wonderful. We made it for you. All right, so here we go, and let me also be mindful of my time. All righty, so step one in this is directing you to open your template. So we're skipping step one. Step two is we're going to fill in our school or district scenario. See above, we called it our scenario, and so we are in our scenario today. We're working with a school district and that wants to improve student attendance in some way. All right, and we probably have some data that's informing this. So we might also here be saying we want to improve by a certain percentage point. We have a goal, perhaps it's in high school. So that's going to be narrowed down, right, to say a SMART goal. Does someone want to offer us a sort of a more focused goal that we would be able to measure in student behavior, in attendance rates, or that we could use here? And this is where you can have mics on, you can have cameras on, or using the chat. Hey, Tammy.
Hi. So to make it more measurable, the school district would like to increase student attendance by X percent. So maybe depending on how low we're starting, 15% or 20%.
All right. Thanks for that. I know that that's probably something you're already doing in coaching scenarios. Is saying, yeah, how would we know? How would we know if we improved in this? And what gains are we trying to make? So we're setting some benchmarks there. All right, thanks. All righty, now, in your facilitator guide, we talk about, we've given some talking points there that you can adapt to your scenario that you're using. So we have, and I'm going to read these to you here. Our goal is that all families not only have the opportunity, but can engage with the school through differentiated practices that meet the needs of each family towards increasing attendance. We might add that there. In this model, we're going to categorize our practices, our services and supports into different tiers, and then make those available to families flexibly based on their needs and the opportunities that families are seeking. We want to be clear, we're not assessing families, we're not putting families in tiers. Instead, we're planning proactively ahead of time to adapt our approach to a family engagement so that each family is supported. And families, they're going to need different levels of support at different times and in different situations. So our model is expansive. We want to think all the way through this. So now let's move on to step 3. We're going to start working in the triangle. Page 1. This plan is built from the bottom row upwards, and each row starts with identifying needs and opportunities. We're not going to jump into determining the response, what we're going to do. We're going to start with universal for all families. So tier 1 is universal family engagement, where we focus on all families, what they need, what opportunities we want all families to have, what they want to have. So tier 1 strategies are proactive. We're preventing problems. So we're preventing truancy. We're preventing students not attending school. So what do all families need to be able to be active in this? All families, what do all families need? What opportunities do we want to have for all families? So you can unmute your mic or you can use the chat, either way.
This is Kim. One thing I think of is just like the success criteria. Like this is our attendance policy. So everybody's clear about it. It's in family-friendly language. It's in multiple places. So everyone is clear about what the district policy is about attendance.
Great. So we communicate the policy and clearly to families, and they know what those indicators are, number of hours. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Even like the threshold. So like if you miss X amount of days or X amount of hours, then we're going to move you into the next tier of support. So just be looking out for a letter. Like if you miss 3 days, then you're going to be getting a letter from us or an email or a phone call or something, just setting those thresholds and those limits, I guess, so you know what kind of support that you're going to be receiving.
Great. Thanks, Kim. Okay, I'm looking at the chat here. So varied communication of the policy. Thanks, Steve. A welcoming, safe learning environment with clear expectations. And letting families know that we're doing that, and maybe families are contributing to that. Kim Moritz just spoke and has done all those welcoming walkthroughs with schools.
Barbara,
yeah.
I was thinking mental health counseling, because there's a reason, I think, why a lot of kids don't want to go to school. And how can parents support their children into wanting to go to school? So maybe some form of counseling, I would want that to be available for the students and maybe also the parents too. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. I think that's a great point. So we want families to be aware that we know students are anxious. They're experiencing lots of stress and pressure about being at school. And so we want to have families know these sports are available to you. We want to have to weave those into our universal supports for families, letting them know about them, helping them understand that. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. That's a great addition here.
So Barbara, I started jumping down to the school response and supports because I think we as professionals are always thinking of like, what can we do to address these things? And I saw from a couple people just varied modes of communication. So that's what we will do in response to the fact that all families need access. So I just wanted to highlight that kind of that difference between the family needs and opportunities and then what we will do in response to support families. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's all go there now. So given that these are opportunities and families need to have, what might be other things? We know varied means of communication. I would add from Michelle's comment that we would have those mental health supports and that communication about those supports in place. What else would you all say are ways of acting on those needs and opportunities? So Josh is asking for feedback, public service announcements about family and community engagement supports for attendance, consistency. Thanks, Megan.
I'm wondering about this, the feedback opportunity. How would we do that? Would we send out a survey to all families? I want to the feedback opportunity is what families might want or need. So what would we do as a school that would provide that feedback opportunity?
I think within this, there's almost a tiered level of how we're communicating as well too, where the survey can be sent out and that's almost like the first level. And then if we don't get a whole lot of results back, or sometimes the hard to reach families, how are we reaching them? Are we making specific phone calls? Are we inviting them to Zoom feedback sessions or things like that? So it's the tier one stuff would be that blanket, but I think we have to dig in a little bit deeper because sometimes it becomes the echo chamber where the same people are responding to the surveys and we're getting the same results and we're not really expanding and we're not reaching the people that we really need to reach.
We could not agree more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we think those decision indicators, and we're going to talk about decision indicators here in a little bit, but thinking about those as you're building the plan too. So how families, those roles are families, are we considering those roles? And I think, Josh, you were just sort of thinking about, oh, families are evaluators. How are we going to hear from them? And I see more coming in here. Could student attendance be readily available for parents to check? So a way for all families in the school easily being able to check their child's attendance. And we see all families maybe having recognition as well. All right, so you see what we're doing here. We're definitely keeping in mind, this is like core instruction. This is like core PBIS supports. It's everybody, every family. We're trying to think very broadly, trying to include as many families as possible. We're trying to be preventative and proactive in this stage. So let's go ahead, for the sake of our time and moving along here, and let's think about tier 2. So tier 2 is where we plan for families within our school population that may need more intense or more frequent or just different strategies. So we're not saying these are tier 2 families. We're saying, what are those responses we're going to have available? What are we going to plan and have prepared so that if this need arises, we're prepared to address that. So families also have access to all tier 1 supports. But what might some families need to know or be able to do in this scenario? So thinking about needs and opportunities for some families, what might arise at some families? And we're probably not individually, but more like we have groups of families that might have other needs.
So maybe, Barb, we need the opportunity to provide families the information in diverse languages, because not all families will be able to understand and read what's in English. So we just need to have a variety of offerings.
Yeah, perfect. Wraparound services for connections to social supports. Thanks, Krista and Terry. Maybe a school call system notification. So maybe in this particular district or school, that call is going to be if there's a certain threshold of absences or something. Opportunities before and after school care.
And where I'm seeing things that sound like our response and supports, I'm trying to translate those to what is kind of the implied need or opportunity behind there. So just to use Terry's as an example, because I think that's really important, we do need to provide wraparound services and connections to community organizations, and perhaps that's for families who have identified in their survey particular barriers to attendance, if that makes sense.
Yes, so Hadley is checking us, which is awesome in that we kind of move from needs and opportunities down to the what are we going to do about it. And you know how important it is for us to sort of, in any sort of planning, right, to stay in the, well, why? What might the needs be? What might the evidence be? And then what will we do about it, as opposed to let's think of ideas of things to do. So that's a great reminder. Okay, so we are going to have, so families, we have students or families that meet a threshold of absences. Thanks, Heidi. Okay, I see that we have quite a bit here. So we get the gist. There's some needs and issues. And also this is a reminder, and I know you all have taught me this, that a great, the best tier 2 is a good tier 1. Right. So if we already translated the materials for it as a tier 1, we just always do that. It's always made accessible to families in multiple ways, multiple languages, then isn't a tier 2 need for us. So, and considering culture as well. Thanks, Krista. If we're doing that well in tier 1, then we have less folks sort of that we are considering that for in tier 2. All right, so tier 2. So now more things that we would do at a tier 2 level in response to these needs. We have follow-up phone calls, counseling support, wraparound community services. I think we also had before and after school supports. I think that was one that Megan had earlier. Okay.
I often think of inviting community businesses in, like, because these kiddos are going to grow up and then work in our community, but what are some attendance policies of the local businesses? So if you could teach families, like, does my child need to attend school? Like, we're building, it's more than just there to be earning your credits, but you're also building a system, a routine, I guess, that you're working on. And then when you go to work, you have attendance policies at work too. So that's fine if you don't want to be at school and you're going to grow up and go to work at this store, this factory, but what are the attendance policies at that store or factory? And this is important that you build this skill now.
Kim, do you see that as something that's universal, that all students and families would benefit from, or something that is more targeted?
I flip back and forth because I think everybody should know the why. Why
I would
it's
put that
important,
under universal.
but
I
I'm
agree.
wondering if you could, if you could actually call in certain businesses in your community to say, hey, this is my attendance policy. If you could just have like something put together, or maybe the company could come in and share their attendance policy, and that could be maybe more of a tier 2 and sit down and talk. If you know in your student success plan where that student wants to do once they've graduated, might be an idea.
That's a cool idea. I think about all the videos that I've seen schools making this past year, and how various videos from different popular employers and communities could be a really neat resource to have. All right, so let's see. I'm missing the things in the chat here. So one of the Heidi mentioned that at tier 2 we could have a specific check-in, check-out program for students that are meeting a certain threshold. I think of Check and Connect has a check-in and check-out. They also have a mentor who has a personal relationship with the family that nurtures communication with the family. So that could be our tier 2. All right, in light of time, let's keep moving and let's go to our tier 1 or tier 3. I'm sorry. So tier 3. All right, so tier 3 is where we plan for individual families within a school population who may need really highly individualized strategies for engagement based on their students' needs, based on their families' needs. These families also have access to tier 1 and tier 2 supports. So what unique needs and opportunities might individual families need to know, be able to do in this scenario? What are some of those tier 3 needs and opportunities?
And Barbara, I wonder if, for the sake of time, if we could identify just one that we're going to focus on as a group. So can we think of an individualized need or opportunity that might be pretty unique that we would want to proactively plan for? That's hard. It's unique, but we also can anticipate it.
What about filing for truancy? Yeah. Support. Now we're turning you over, and this is the next step. And if there's someone from that organization that would be able to help families.
Sure. So we have kids who are truant, and Steve offered and maybe some of the reasons are that we have children who are caretakers. So how about that's our need? All right, and then let's jump to what might our responses be? What are those supports we want to be able to have in place to address that specifically? So connecting with community services, we might identify those here in a particular district, identifying the community resources there. Supports with family court, childcare. This might be one of those, we talked about wraparound earlier. This might be a time for more intensive individualized wraparound.
I was wondering, kind of connecting with what Tom and Krista said, whether we would create an attendance team in this situation and involve to get families' feedback as well.
Oops.
Krista,
one of the things we created in our community was a relationship with family court, where before we got to the actual truancy piece, there were preliminary conversations held with the parent, because you don't want to just file truant charges. But by working with family court in those preliminary steps before you reach that actual filing of truancy, then it allows the family to understand the seriousness of the matter, but it also begins to work with the family to provide those supports that they may need, and they might not be willing to tell the school, but they're willing to tell the court. So that's what I meant when I listed family court, because there's some things that they're able to do that the school's not always able to do.
Thanks, Chris. That's a great example. Thank you. I see Heidi also added like meeting with folks, time convenient for them to talk about needs, sort of get to that root cause analysis in a sense, in a very personalized, more trusting, less threatening way. So a home visit. Thanks, Steve. All right, so now, so we sort of thought through at each level, we're trying to anticipate ahead of time needs and opportunities, and then how we could address those, making sure we have those plans in place, and those resources in place. Now we're going to shift to thinking about our decision indicators and our roles for families. So let's start with roles for families. We're moving on to page 2. What are the roles for families? So how could families be initiators in this current scenario?
One of the first things I think of is that families will be initiating letting the school know when their child is going to be absent.
Mm-hmm. Letting them know ahead of time. Josh says requests for support, like I can't get my 17-year-old son out the door. I need help. Reaching out for help, having a request. Maybe transportation falls apart for their family. Maybe request for attendance supports, providing information about the needs that they have. All right, great. A family might also say initiate, like, this is so punitive. We go from like 0 to 60, and like, where's the space for us to work together to help support my child's attendance? So, okay, so let's now jump to how could families be co-designers in this scenario? How could we involve families as co-designers? We're going to customize the supports. And let's say that we talk to some families of students who have experienced issues with their attendance to find out how could we be more helpful? How could we support you? Part of the attendance team, taking a survey, having them be on the attendance policy committee, great. Ask for family feedback and ideas. Wonderful, and those almost sound tiered to me as well. One of them is kind of like all families could give us feedback on this. Some, a family member being on a team, that's a pretty individualized or more intensive. So
maybe they co-design celebrations about positive student attendance. Families know what motivates their children.
Yeah. Okay. How could families be receivers? What supports could families receive through this that would help them? Recognition. Thanks, Heidi, for improved attendance. Multimodal communication. Thanks, Missy. They're receiving communication. They're receiving recognition. Maybe that family in our tier 1. So we decide what are barriers to childcare. Is it cost? There are some pretty hefty forms to complete if you want assistance in supporting your childcare. Your child might have extensive needs. We're not exactly sure who they're caring for and why at home, but how can we help folks with those supports? Being open-minded to suggestions. Thanks. And coaching supports. All right, so let's think about providers. How could families be providers in this scenario? What are ways that things that they would be doing, ways that they would be actively supporting attendance?
thinking they're providing structure to their children at home about getting to school.
I think about some of the kickoffs and things I've been seeing in social media and other places on the ODE website with the Cleveland Browns initiative and all of that, so attending those and really sort of exposing their kids to these things, incentives and language that align with PBIS and implementing that at home. Thanks, Missy. So like the home incentives they're offering, updates at PTO meetings.
I like Stacy's her second point in particular, sharing information on Facebook, like in Facebook groups to each other. So I'm thinking they would provide support to other families through social media groups.
Yeah, leveraging the voice of families and their sort of their support in sharing with other families they're a great messenger. It's like we said, it's one thing to hear from a teacher, from a principal, to hear from another family. That's really powerful. So family support groups. All right, and let's do the last one, evaluators. Thanks, Josh, for being ambassadors. For evaluators, Heidi has invite to serve on the school attendance team, provide feedback on the model, sharing with families here are all the supports that we have, getting feedback, providing feedback to the school. Thanks, Tammy. And really, we can think about that family who's really receiving that really intensive individualized support, families that are receiving that checking in connect, that maybe more frequent phone calls, those sorts of things, and then all families giving feedback to the school. Thanks. All right.
I was just thinking that they could give feedback about the frequency and method of communication that the school is using. Sometimes families say this is too much, or I need to know more, or could you let me know right away when my child's absent?
Absolutely. Let me know in a different way. Participate in a group evaluation. Thanks, Missy. More qualitative. All right. So now let's think about, I'm sorry, we have a plan. We have a role for families. So now let's look at our decision indicators. These are how do we know when we're going to move from tier 2 back to tier 1? How do we know when we're going to move from tier 2 to tier 3? So what might be indicators for a change in intensity? And here's in your guide, if you're thinking about your facilitator guide, we're in step 7. So what decision indicators might show us a family needs a different level of support? This could come from student data, feedback from families, something we're observing. A change of intensity means how deeply or intensely we're working with a family. So what might show a need for a change of intensity and supports for a family or for a group of families?
And this could also be a change of intensity in engagement opportunities. So you can, from putting my administrator hat on, I can think a little bit about families who want to be more involved than just that universal receiving information. So how might we change the intensity of their opportunities to engage on attendance? Or how would we know that they need? I guess that's the question.
Thinking about student data, what would be a student data indicator?
Going back to what Michelle talked about students with mental health challenges that might be getting in the way of attendance. So one indicator of the need for change of intensity might be kind of a combination of letting the school know that there are some mental health concerns and then also like lagging student attendance.
Yeah, so we have that change in attendance, increases and decreases in attendance, and we might actually have a threshold as well here, a specific threshold above it with the students now improved. So we're going to they don't need to be in our tier 2 program any longer, and So improved or increasing or decreasing, referring back to the attendance policy, parameters are set up there. Yeah, Kim, those decision indicators there. Or if we have no response at all, thank you. And those mental health supports too. So if a family, and so we may have lots of proactive ways of really creating that welcoming, supportive. We might have relationships that, that are really going to be both students are going to feel known and like they belong. Those are all those sort of mental health supports. And then we have this indication, this family says, I can't get my kid to get on the bus. They are, really afraid of going to school. So we're going to more intensive supports. So let's think about a change in dose. So dose is just more of something that we're already doing. It's not different or more intense necessarily. We're doing something, we're going to do it more frequently. So what might be an indicator that we need to step things up and provide more frequent, how often or how much we're doing with the family?
Would that be, I'm thinking about the communication that we have with families. And would that come through those relationships and those check-ins with families to find out if the change in intensity or the change in dose is needed? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for example, here we might have family data or feedback that indicates that a family wants to know more frequently or more regularly. Perhaps if a student starts the day at the school, but then starts skipping classes, they want to know more. I used to have families that say, let me know right away if they're not in class,
Don't sort of follow the protocol maybe we have set up of, I'll let you know after this many misses. Let me know right away. That's great. Okay. So dose, and sometimes, dose doesn't, is sometimes effective, right? I need this more frequently. I need it more in a more timely way. And maybe that's something that we, maybe it's that phone call, it's that outreach, it's that you're going to meet with this mentor more often. So those are changes of dose. So if we see no change of data towards a goal, say 15% check in every 9 weeks, how often? Yeah. Okay, Kim. So you're saying let's increase the frequency of those check-ins. I think that's what
I'm actually going to put that one down on change of practice. If there's no change in data towards our goal, would that indicate that we need to change our practice? Could mean several different things, but.
Heidi's offering a tier 3 check-in on families on every absence, tier 2 check monthly checks, tier 1 quarterly check-ins. Yeah, you're just getting a report with here's like an academic report and an attendance report. We don't have time to do things that are not showing progress. Thanks, Tammy. Tell me more about that, Tammy. Do you want to unmute your mic? What gets monitored gets done. Okay, there you go. So, all right.
Yeah, if the strategies that we are using are not showing a change in data, a positive change in data, then whether the strategy worked in the past, it's not working currently. So we need to find a different strategy.
Yes. And I would say there's our change of practice. Yeah, let's not just do more of the thing that's not working. Thanks, Tammy.
Right.
Yeah, great. So change of practice.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Yeah.
Yes, Michelle.
Thanks. So the student, what about maybe addressing the student directly? I hear a lot of talk about talking to parents, and well, the student is part of the family, and so maybe just provide a really direct opportunity to hear from the student's perspective, and maybe like tell the student, here are some supports that you could use, because I don't know, I just feel like that gives the student some choice, some empowerment, some control over the situation. It's not just the adults are telling the student what to do. The student feels like he's involved, and well, he or she is involved in the process. So thanks, that's my suggestion.
That's a great suggestion, Michelle. I think you sort of called us on the fact that, yeah, we've been talking about a lot about adults, sort of what are the adults going to do? We haven't heard from kids and what supports they need, and really hearing like they're going to help us get to like the root causes and without us sort of guessing about it. So thank you.
I also want
great
to
addition.
that made me think of something that you wouldn't want only this plan. This is a family engagement plan, MTSS approach to family engagement around attendance. But from my administrator perspective, I would see this as complementary and parallel to an attendance intervention plan that I would create that is more student focused. And I would say, just as we see families having a variety of roles in an MTSS approach to family engagement, we would also want to see students having a variety of roles in a student attendance plan that's through an MTSS model. So they wouldn't be just always students as receivers in that plan. If it's really well done, students would have a voice in co-designing, students would have a voice in initiating supports that they might need. But this isn't like a standalone plan. This goes in parallel to what the districts are already doing in other initiatives. Barbara, am I making sense there?
Absolutely. And so I think Michelle brings up a good point. I think as if we're coaching this, we're thinking, are all the perspectives that are needed in this evident? So are we hearing from students? Do we already have that? Are we hearing from families, our schools, our community? So I think this is, we're wanting to sort of bring more people to the table. So I think Michelle's point is well taken, and Hadley's saying if we're already, if we are already have students at the table, now we want to bring families on. But this is certainly an opportunity to sort of consider who are we not hearing from, even from an equity lens. Like, are we hearing from all of our families? Do we have perspectives that really are really rounded out, or and are, we're informed by all? And I think, one of the decision indicators, and Josh brought up, like, and we're going to allow this process before we change, or for this much time, this practice we're going to do this for this many weeks, this much time, and then reassess. I think, Josh, that's what you were sort of getting at there, giving strategies time to work. We could have a decision flow chart. Yes. Yeah, Terry.
Yeah, and just to emphasize that if you are working on this with a school, you would want to build this over a longer amount of time. And in fact, Barbara, I think it might be good. I want to go through a slide around kind of like how would you kind of measure or assess the quality of your plan, but I want to go through that fairly quickly. So we're starting to get to some of the coaching level discussion questions that we want to make sure that we have time to reflect on. So as we're creating these plans for school districts or with school districts in an organizational context, Barbara and I sat down and thought about how would we know if the plan that's being created is quality. So we would suggest using what we call the parade strategy to self-assess the quality of a plan. And you could do this with a team in a discussion format. So you've heard of big rocks, non-negotiables in your work. These are the big elephants. Without them, instead of having this smoothly running system for family engagement, you'd have chaos. So first, we would look at the P. What is the plan proactive and preventative? So here we're thinking about, did we wait for problems to happen, or did we plan tier 1 strategies that informed families and support families in such a way that problems don't occur? We're acting so that families and students have what they need to be successful. And I think we did that in our plan. We thought about what information families would need and how they might need to access it in a way that they can understand, in a way that reaches them. We also thought about right from the start explaining the why. Why is this attendance initiative important? Why does it matter to the students? Why should it matter to students for their careers? The A is whether or not all have opportunity. So a lot of family engagement efforts, as we all know, are focused on some families. It's always the same families that are engaging. And so we really want to encourage school districts to plan for all families, because when some families are not engaging or don't have opportunities to engage, the school community suffers. So instead of blaming families for not engaging, the goal here is to strategize how to differentiate engagement practices at the school on the school's part, so that all families have an opportunity to support their child's learning in meaningful ways. And just thinking about how in our plan we ensured that we were sending things home in multiple languages. Right there is ensuring that more families have opportunity to engage with this plan than if we were sending things home only in English. The R is roles for families. So remember, being receivers of supports, that's often how we think of family engagement, providers of supports to their children. Those are the main ways that schools tend to expect families to engage. But we want to ensure that families have meaningful roles as initiators, co-designers, and evaluators for us to achieve true partnership and collaboration. So I heard about asking all families for their feedback in surveys, asking families to meet in focus groups if they had more perspectives to share or we could benefit from learning from them. So that's how we provided multiple roles for families. We also want to make sure that we plan in advance. So in advance of any new initiative, we would create an intentional plan for a multi-tiered system of support for family engagement to kind of go alongside it. The planning process is integral to our work as educators. It's not an afterthought. So this is the kind of plan we would want to build before we started this attendance initiative to raise student attendance to 15% or by 15%. D stands for data-driven indicators. So tier 1 supports and strategies based on school data. We had that student data goal. Indicators for supports and strategies at tier 2 or tier 3 level. So our indicators indicating a need to increase or decrease those opportunities for engagement or support. We would base those on data. So as a school district would collect data from students, families, and classrooms from students to determine the best family engagement practices to use to provide opportunity for all families to engage. And then the final one is E, evidence informed. So no matter the level, the strategies included would be evidence-based practices for family engagement. Strategies are central, sustained, family-centered, goal-oriented, systemic, focused on student impact, and for all.
So we'd like to just debrief with you now, and if you would, as coaches, with your coach's hat on, if you would unmute, mics on, and let's talk about this a little bit. Our first question is, as a coach, when might you use this with a school district?
So I was thinking with respect to the work that we're doing around NNPS with our cohorts, that this would be a great opportunity to infuse some of this as I'm looking at their plans this year, and just infusing not only that parade piece, but just just diving deeper with some of their data and their goals that they're hoping to obtain to increase family engagement.
Thanks, Krista. I do think that this would, it helps to break things down so that we're not thinking just even in those big 6 key areas, right? But then within those key areas, then we're thinking about all and how we might be building in flexibility. Thanks.
I also thought of the one plans that districts have. Family engagement is a goal on many of those, and this process may be helpful in that work as well.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, I think it would be great for that. And I'm hoping that there's sort of opportunities for you to just in time sort of be able to introduce these ideas in their one plan. Thanks. Stacy too. All right. Other thoughts? Well, let me add another question. We can, and that is, how might you adapt the process? So we certainly don't want you to, to think that we're saying you got to do step 1, step 2, step 3, right? That we're hoping that this is just a good fit, and this is going to be something you can sort of adapt and use, as it fits. You can use it to see what baseline supports are currently available. Yeah.
Yes, Barb, we have with our wraparound teams that are tier 3 in several areas, we have a team that when they were prioritizing PBIS, we also had an issue of attendance, and of all places, it was in their preschool and kindergarten, which kind of seemed surprising. So that's where the intentional work was going. Why, and was the data correct that they had? And what was it in those early years that were preventing students from coming to school? So yeah, that's where we would have, that's what we targeted.
Thanks, Helen. So yeah, really specifically just focusing on early childhood and those early years and early grades around attendance. We hope that this might be any sort of coaching if you're coaching around literacy. So we have decision indicators for students. We have diagnostic assessments. They're going to receive a tier 2 instruction, tier 3. And so we might have a family engagement plan that sort of mirrors that. It could be around attendance. It could be around post-secondary planning. So really PBIS is your, you know, if you have a PBIS team, we've got the wonderful rubric and tools that were created by our team. This might be a helpful one in then thinking through then those multi-level supports for families that go along with PBIS goals and planning. Yeah, Megan mentions there's lots of different entry points. So I hope that this is sort of flexible enough that, you know, you've got different entry points. And certainly, you know, we've sort of created a template, we've created a guide. I think that you already have guides and templates for planning that you're using. This could just be a way of sort of inserting into that conversation and into those plans and templates versus using a separate one. It's here as needed. All right, Hadley's posted a reflection question for us here.
Yeah, I have. And I apologize. My whole PowerPoint closed down. Thunderstorm starting here in Columbus. So I don't know if that's part of it. So I want to kind of challenge you and kind of end with a lighter note to think about what your headline would be if you were writing a news story about a multi-tiered approach to engaging families. We have a silly headline to inspire us, but if you could write just a headline to the story about engaging families through a multi-tiered approach, what would it be? You can just put that in chat. Barbara, what might yours be?
I'm thinking here. Yeah. This one makes me giggle every time I read it.
Something like one size doesn't fit all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like planning for every family? Planning, that's not very catchy though. No family left behind. I love that one. We got two in a row.
2 votes for that. I like it.
It can be done.
Mm-hmm. Launch your family engagement efforts through a multi-tiered approach. Have no limits. Love it.
Oh, you guys are so much better at this than I am.
Climbing the mountain of family engagement through a multi-tiered approach. Well, that was just sort of a silly way to end us up. Barbara, did you have an idea?
Well, I was just thinking about that book, Beyond the Bake Sale.
Yeah.
And we really true are going beyond the bake sale with this. This is much more serious, much more impactful, much more sort of student impact directed family engagement when we think about it in this way. All are welcome, a seat at the table. Love it.
So I'm pretty sure Tom has included all of these materials on the FCE network page, but I know some of you like working in Google Drive. So if you go to this link I've put in chat or scan this, the template that we used with you today, the facilitator guide, they're all on there and you can just make a copy of them and use them when you work with districts. That you'll also find today's slides, including the example we just built together. And then we've also done this presentation for a group of similar coaches in the state of Washington. And so I actually kept their slides in there too, so you could see a different example. We did not focus on attendance, just so you could see how this could be used with other initiatives a school might be using. So,
And just
Tom, I believe, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add to that. I put the link that directly on our center website. There's a professional learning page that Hadley has really organized nicely. And there are a couple of videos where we presented in Michigan or other places with the multi-tiered system of support. And so if that would be another resource, those are there.
Okay. Yes, actually, Susan, the examples from today should be in there. You'll see 2 PDF files that are our slides. One of them you'll see was last modified at 11:51. That's our example that we built together. It also has all the other slides from the presentation. And then the one from August 19th was with the state of Washington. And Barbara, can you remind me, was that a reading plan? That was a reading focused MTSS.
Yes, it was a school district that wanted to share diagnostic reading scores with families about their students' progress. And so they're thinking about, they thought about a multi-tiered approach to that. Yeah.
Okay, Tom, I think we're ready to turn things back over to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you both to Barbara. Oh no, my video came off. Barbara and Hadley for that very engaging presentation and something that I just think is super useful. Multi-tiered system supports changed my life when I learned about it as a teacher, and I think it's just such a great strategy and a great role for you to push in as coaches and remind people about. With that though, we'll make sure that we got all the materials on the website. Pretty sure they're all up there if you need them and stuff. People did ask for that example, so we'll see about getting that up there too. But beyond that, I'm about to put up a clock. You get a half hour for lunch, so I hope that you spend your time the best way for you, and we'll see you back here at 12:30 talk about our future in the network. Thank you. I'm on mute. Hello, welcome back. Took me a second to find the buttons again, but I hope you all are getting settled in from a nice little break for lunch. I know it was a short one, but I'm glad that you could be here with us today and might spend a little of your lunch hour learning about indicator 8 data and where we might go in the future with this network. As I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, our charge is kind of from the Ohio Department of Education's Office of Exceptional Children, and as such, we are focused on building strong, sustainable family, school, community partnerships, but we do have an intentional focus on students with disabilities and their families. That being the case, the Indicator 8 survey is of massive importance to our work. We're really excited to be able to talk about this data in a new way and show it in a new way since we've been able to work on updating that family survey. And we're really excited to share it with you. But before we get to that presentation, I wanted to center us around some more guiding ideas around our work, something to take into the afternoon, kind of keep with us as we keep thinking about things. So if you've been with the network for a while, you've seen this before, because unfortunately we haven't updated it in a second. And that is going to be a goal of ours for this year, to update this, hopefully with some of your help. But I did want to show this because it is guiding kind of where we're headed and what we do in this network. For those of you unfamiliar, this is kind of our logic model or our theory of action and change for this this project. It's kind of hard to see up there. Don't worry about reading into it too close, because I have pulled out some of the more important parts for us to look at right here. So here's what we said we'd do with this network. And this is kind of a combination of, oh no, my camera came off again. What's going on here? This is kind of combination of what we at the center promise to offer to you to be as supportive as possible in your work as state support teams, but also some of the work we're going to do together. So I just wanted to give you all a second to read over this for 1 minute, and we'll take it with us into the day. So I'm going to be quiet for just about 30 seconds. Please take a second to read that. I'll point out some important parts in a second. Okay, so hopefully you had a second to read that. Keep on reading if you need to. But what you might see here is a lot of things about alignment, a lot of things about capacity building, a lot of things about collaboration. And that's what we love to do here. And that's what we're going to keep doing. But a couple things I want you to think about as we think not only about the indicator 8 survey data and what type of capacity building learning we might need, but also as we think about work groups and things like that, is some of these ideas around developing trainings, tools, and resources. So what is the data going to tell us about what families said they are either lacking or not experiencing the best, or maybe they're experiencing something really good that we could build on there. So think about things that might connect to that: trainings, tools, resources. At the same time, all the way down at the bottom, you see building capacity. That's kind of the other side of the goal. We can build all the trainings, resources, stuff that we want, but if we're not prepared as coaches, consultants, to go and use those in kind of an effective and strategic way, then we're not going to be getting the best that we can out of a product. So we need to build our own capacity. So be looking to the survey data and also kind of lining that up with your experience as we enter the new school year, considering how we best could support your capacity and our capacity as we work to support you and grow that. So just a couple of things I want you to take on and think about as we move forwards into today, into this afternoon. So we are really lucky today that we are not only going to get to break down some of the indicator data as I disappear again, and but we are going to get to hear from someone and get the perspective of someone who has kind of worked on the indicator 8 survey from its kind of redevelopment and distribution and data collection all the way to this end part where we're now getting the pretty charts and graphs. So we're lucky to have someone with us who has great contextual knowledge, who's worked really hard to make this stuff useful for us and improve kind of what we're looking at here. So before I kick it over to this wonderful person that I've been talking about, Beth, from our center, I want to discuss a protocol that we're going to use today. And it's going to actually feel kind of natural. You might not even notice that you're in a protocol for the next 45 minutes or so. But we do take seriously kind of being as efficient as possible when we are together and trying to squeeze the most juice we can out of any type of activity. So we are going to be using this protocol that is simply called looking at the data set protocol. It's a protocol you could find it online. I believe the School Reform Institute has some publications on it and things like that. But we're basically going to get a presentation from Beth Crawford in a second. And then we're just going to let Beth talk for a minute, probably about 15, 20 minutes. Then we'll have some time to break, have some clarifying questions, specific questions about the data set, right? From there, we can have some probing questions. Like I said, Beth's got a great context for this. She's kind of been with this in its evolution. So You might want to ask some questions that the data made you think of that Beth might have some good answers to. Then we're going to get into some small groups to discuss what the data means for our work and record some observations. And then we'll have an open discussion at the end. So with that said, we're going to follow this protocol. Like I said, you might not even feel like you're in it, but without further ado, I would love to move into Beth's presentation. So I'm going to pull up these slides right now, and I'd like to introduce Beth Crawford from the Center on Education and Training for Employment here at Ohio State University.
Thank you, Tom, and I'm so glad that you invited me here. I have been working in the Indicator 8, the family survey data, since we launched the online portion sometime last fall, so almost a year. We are into 2 cohorts of data, which we will talk a little bit about kind of where we are in the evolution of things. Some of you may have been a part of this APEC presentation that I did, and these are the slides from that. So I'm certainly not going to hit on every slide because we definitely want to get to the other pieces of that protocol that Tom outlined because that's the real exciting part. You know, data is really just the beginning, the conversation starter. Data generally drives us to ask more questions, which is, I think, is the really cool part and why I get so jazzed about data, because we want to know more. And that's what helps us to get to those continuous improvement, what things are working, what things might we do better, what things might we tweak along the way. So I want to start out just with this first slide, considerations for the usage of family survey data. And see this if you take a look at district reports, which are coming, because I know that will be a question. We will put these considerations in the hands of practitioners, because we want to make sure that the data is being used in a way that we at OSU can feel comfortable with. So the first part of this is, you know, really understanding that the results can't be generalized to all families, or even all families who are a part of the special education system. And this is a result of the way that we have done our sampling. So it's not a representative sample, and or there wasn't enough responses to represent a true census. So not getting too technical here, but we are required to send out a survey to all of the school districts and community schools over a 6-year period. So we broke those schools into 6 cohorts. And we did some manipulation to make sure that we didn't have like all of our urbans in one cohort. So we did some distribution across the 6 cohorts. So we just want to make sure that folks, when they start to look at the results, aren't saying, okay, yes, we can, you know, we can think about this for, you know, all of our families involved with the special education system. And then you'll see number 2 here, that you can have more confidence when the response rates are approaching 80%, 50 to 60% really is the lower limit. Below that, again, and Tom, you can go ahead and flip to the next screen. You'll see that you can really think about using the data in more of the conversation starter. This is just a little bit more about the response rate and other considerations. You'll see 2 bullet points down there. The Ohio Department of Education needed to select additional indicators around the survey data. So there was a real focus on ensuring that we got representation from our Black families, as well as the number of respondents in each disability category representing the categories that are representative across the state. And we'll get into that a little bit. It'll make a little bit more sense when we actually start to look at the data. Go ahead to the next slide. So asking how can the data be used? Again, we talked about being, really conversation starters. You may be able to pick out some survey data as you're making some planning decisions or developing some additional questionnaires, or if you have committees that you want to involve your parents in maybe understanding some of the different elements. Those are all great considerations for the data. So I'm going to just briefly, these next slides really just talk about how the survey has changed. So, and most of you, I believe, probably were around during the time that I believe the survey was paper pencil collection and maybe, distributed to a certain select number of parents who were involved in the special education system. So we really wanted to widen that net. And in order to do that, we put the survey online. The survey is translated into 6 or 8 different languages. And we distributed it out through various different mechanisms. We asked districts and community schools to think about their distribution methods so that we could try to collect as many surveys as we possibly could. And you will see in the results that I feel that we were pretty successful in getting a really nice amount of surveys back through this mechanism. We also did a raffle for gift certificates. We gave 10 randomly drawn gift certificates. So I think that that was another factor in increasing our response rate. We already talked about this 6 different cohorts, and there was approximately 150 districts in each of the cohorts. We really distributed to those schools that had high African-American enrollment. And what I mean is that we wanted those evenly distributed across the 6 cohorts. The average is 16.8% African-American enrollment in Ohio. Go ahead to the next slide. You can go ahead forward. And one more. This just talks about basically how the survey questions were constructed, and that was done by having a variety of different experts involved. Obviously, we wanted the survey to be, not lengthy, but we wanted to be able to get to those critical high priority questions. Okay, go ahead to the next one. The question, there's one question that is actually reported back to the feds, and this is the indicator 8 question. And so the question is, taking all things into account, do you believe your child's school works with you to best meet your child's needs? And it's on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 meaning not at all, 10 meaning a great deal. We use the cutoff of 7 or above, we defined as being in agreement with this statement. And that is what is actually reported for indicator 8. You will see though, of course, there are many other questions as part of the survey. We already talked about dissemination methods and emails and reminders. So for this cohort, you can see we had 155 participating districts and community schools. We had 141 of those that actually had at least one response from families. And overall, we had almost 10,000 responses collected. And then once we went through the eligibility criteria, which the eligibility was around age category. The family had to have a child that was receiving or had an actual IEP. So once we took all of those factors into consideration, we had 7,300 responses that were included in the analysis that you will see. I'm gonna go ahead and get through that one. Yep. So just a couple of things around the demographics here. The top chart is the age, how the age categories broke down, and then the bottom one is the grade. So you can see that about, over 50% of the responses came from those families that had children in those elementary school years. So once we get to high school and even in the pre-K kindergarten, those responses were less than what we had for those elementary ages. So when I was talking about the different race categories and how those compared to the percentage of students enrolled in schools across Ohio, this is what this chart is saying. So if we look at the gray bar, this is the percent of the total student enrollment by race category. And then the purple bar is overlaid, breaking out how the responses broke down by those different race categories. So what you can see here is areas where we either had overrepresentation or underrepresentation. So you can see that we had 72%, which is an overrepresentation of the total enrollment in Ohio, which is right around, it's about 69%. So it's not terribly that we were overrepresentative. But when we get into the Black non-Hispanic category, this is again where we were shooting for that 16.8%, and we got 11%. So in the cohort 2, we really took an opportunity to take a look at that and say, how can we think about getting more responses from families that have children with an IEP that identified themselves as Black non-Hispanic. And we used some cultural brokers. We actually had somebody in our office videotape themselves inviting parents and caregivers to complete the survey. So we have not been able to get into doing the analysis of cohort 2. We're in the process. I'm in the process of cleaning that data. So we'll see how we're doing with some of those strategies if we've been able to increase that percentage there. Go ahead to the next slide. And then we did the same for disability categories. So again, the gray bars are the disability categories and how they are arrayed in total school enrollment, and then the response rate is in purple, broken down by how the parents identified their children with IEPs. And again, this would have been them selecting from the categories as they are listed on the IEP. So again, we have some areas where we have underrepresentation and some where we have overrepresentation. And we'll take a look at the quality indicator. Again, this is the indicator where that indicator 8, where we're reporting the percentage of respondents who rated things a 7 or above. So you can see that we've really done, very well with folks overall feeling rating this question a 7 and above, 85%. So then we wanted to look at how things broke out race-wise, and you can see that there is some difference between the different race categories. So I've just highlighted that the Black category and the multiracial categories are a little bit lower than our overall, or even compared to the white category, Hispanic, and Asian populations. Okay, go to the next slide. And then we broke out how this question broke out age-wise. You can see that the 3 to 5 year old, or the parents that had 3 to 5 year olds rated the highest, 93% of them saying rating this question a 7 or above. For the next set of overall questions, what I did was I grouped them into what I felt were some family engagement clusters. So the first is around communication. And there were 4 questions indicating whether or not they strongly, from strongly disagree to strongly agree on that scale. And you can see the questions here. And we did not break this out, or at least on the slides, we didn't break out by race. We could see some differences if we might disaggregate by race and or by disability categories. But just for the sake of this presentation, as well as the amount of data that there is, we left this as an overall aggregate percentage on how folks rated each one of these questions. So you can see here on communication how folks agreed or strongly agreed with those different statements. Then we'll go to the next category around school climate. 3 questions here. And what's curious here is, looking at the question around making my child feel, or the school makes my child and families from different cultures feel welcome. So that welcoming culture. So that one definitely rated a little bit lower than the other 2 questions in this category. And then partnering with schools, there were 7 questions around this area. So meeting times, viewing parents as the expert about meeting the child's needs, how they are, if they're on the same page. And you can read those questions down through there, and then you can see how the different categories were distributed here. So I ran through those really quickly. Our next step with this, with the Ohio Department of Education, will be helping to facilitate the next round of Indicator 8 target setting. So that's something that is coming up. And then the next part on our plate is cleaning the cohort 2 data, providing a similar state report that would look at the same questions for cohort 2, as well as I am nearly finished, and I really hope very soon to be able to provide those district and community schools back with their own data. The only difference is it will look very similar to these slides, except for those beginning slides. We won't be breaking those out by race or disability categories, just because there's, some of those schools have, very low response rates. So we want to be careful in making sure that we're not, preventing parents from filling out surveys and their information being protected. So I'm going to stop there and let Tom go to the next part of our protocol, which I believe is questions.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thanks, Beth. I'm gonna just jump back over here really quick. The next part is clarifying questions. So I am starting a timer right now. And just in case you're unclear of the difference, here's some examples like clarifying, we're talking about specific things in the presentation. So if you could share any questions that you have by either jumping in here on the chat or using the chat feature, or really just jumping in and sharing a question out loud, please. Beth, the first question, clarifying question, how many districts were in the first cohort?
155.
155, thank you. We'll wait for about 30 more seconds, just in case people are typing. Is there data on the location for each survey response?
If I understand correctly, so by district or community school and or county, is that, am I interpreting the question correctly?
County. Yes.
Now, I have not run any kind of data by county or by region. The analysis will be done by the district, you know, so for each district or community school that had at least 10 responses, they will be getting a report very similar to the one that you see otherwise, other than it won't be in PowerPoint form. It'll be more in a PDF report.
Thank you. Okie dokie. So haven't had any others clarifying questions come in the chat. So we're going to switch now to probing questions. So these are questions that may help you think a little more deeply, or things that might have popped into your head as Beth was presenting. So you might be thinking about what the impact of this is, or kind of what the implications for there being more responses or more reports from one group or another, things like that. So Beth is our survey expert here. So if you have any of those questions, I'll be quiet, jump in and just share out loud or drop them in the chat, please. So this is a question similar to the location question. So would you be able to sort by typology of the districts?
So ODE has given us the typologies. Again, we have not run the data analysis by typologies. I had been working through a process with them, kind of what would be most helpful. And, you know, they really felt that just having things by district and community school would be the most helpful versus kind of clumping them together. And I certainly understand from the SST perspective, you know, are there some things that you can glean from your particular region, or are there some differences between, you know, say rural versus urban versus, I can't remember all of the different typologies. So we just have not, we've not dived, we haven't dove into the data to that extent. And it's really just, it's a resource issue. We could slice or dice the data many different ways. But with this amount of data, and for cohort 2, I think we have over 10,000 responses. Just the amount of data cleaning and the effort to produce these kind of reports, we want to make sure that we're giving you kind of the biggest bang for your buck.
Thank you. Next up, when the reports get sent out, will they state that they might be able to reach out to their state support teams, or more specifically, family engagement leads at state support teams, if they have questions or need further support?
Sure, we can absolutely do that. And I haven't talked with ODE about, does the report just go to the, the superintendent? I have a whole list of folks, the special education director, the special education coordinators, the SST associated. So, from my perspective, those reports are for, planning purposes and discussion. So I'd like to see them in the hands of, whomever would like them, but it's really not up to me. So I will wait for kind of direction on who it needs to go to and go from there.
Totally understandable. Coming up on time, so if anyone has more probing questions, please get them in the chat. The next one that we have right now is, will state support teams be responsible to follow up with districts, community schools, if they ask? Will they be getting copies? So we kind of addressed a lot of that. The copies, we'll just have to see what ODE says first. In the past, they've been flexible with our network, so I think there might be a conversation for us to have with the department as well. But I do really appreciate and like the fact that a few of you out there are asking to make this connection. So that's really exciting.
And I would agree, Tom. And I mean, all of my conversations with the folks at the department have, been, we want this data to be, useful, where that was certainly, one of the goals is meeting the federal requirement, but the other is, how can we make the data most useful? How can it be valuable? How can it, be something that is part of the conversation starter, which I don't know has been necessarily done in the past. So I would love to see you all connected with that and utilizing that for however it makes the most sense to do that with your districts.
Thank you. So now, since there's no more questions that have come in, and we spent about 5 minutes on the probing questions, we are about 5 minutes ahead of schedule, which is really great, because what I'm thinking now is it'll give us a couple more minutes in our group. But what I would also encourage you is, we did kind of fly through the data to get to the question and small group part, to maybe take 3 minutes or so, 3 to 5 minutes at the beginning of the breakouts, just to familiarize yourself with that group of slides that had the data on it. Maybe make some observations yourself first. I know that this is adjusting the protocol. It's not very evidence-based, but we're moving here. So I did want to remind you really quick, 2 things that you might want to know for this. If you want to be working in the PowerPoint or have the slide deck open for yourself during the breakout, right here, right, indicator 8 presentation in the FCE website, we're also about to be going into breakouts, and your materials are right here, and the links are also in the PowerPoints. But we're going to kind of break up a little more intentionally in this time. So the breakout time is going to be a little longer than 10 minutes. Like I said, use that extra time to read into the data a little bit more. But the assigned breakout rooms are as follows. They're up there. So 3, 6, 9, or not 3, 6, 3, 9, 11, and 13. You're going to be at 1, 1, 6, 8, and 10, and 2, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 3, and 12, 14, 15, 16, and 4. There are some guiding questions in there. They're going to be in those breakout group documents that are linked right here, or those buttons in the website. So before I open the breakout rooms, I know I gave you a lot of directions really fast. Are there any questions, or are people able to get into the website and stuff good? Okay. So feel free to turn your cameras on. If you're one of our network partners, feel free to join any of the groups there. I'm about to open the room. So just select into the one that lines up to your region on the PowerPoint, please. It looks like we're moving. Thank you all.
Tom, I'm not moving.
Oh, let me see if I can just point you in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Sweet. People found the rooms. So they're going to be in there for about 11 minutes, and then we'll wrap up at the end if you can stick around.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey, Melissa.
I just had, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Barb. Hi.
I was messaging Melissa on Teams about this question about could SST be listed as a resource for districts to turn to in regards to indicator 8.
Yeah, I would not see a reason that they couldn't be. I mean, Tara seems, very supportive of, again, data being put in the hands of the folks who are, wrapping around that school. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Beth, will you add that to the list of things that we discuss with them when we meet with them on the 1st or whatever that means?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
My other question was, because I now read the question in the chat around the typology. Do you think that is that they want to know the typology for the district, or are they thinking data by the typology?
I'm not sure. Susan Larson is brand new, a
Okay.
family engagement person. She's been in an ESC and principal and teacher. So I'm not sure what she's thinking. She's in region 12, which is, all rural. I don't know that there's any, Cambridge might be the big city.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
I'm not sure.
Probably still be rural.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where she's coming from with typology.
I was also thinking that so let's say Carol was like, sure, here is, the state level data to look at or whatever. We'd be very easily able to help navigate through that meshing of things too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it and it'll be interesting after they come back from their small group discussions, because I was looking at a way to do a higher level, like, would it be helpful to do by SST? And then this would be the districts that would encompass that. And, ODE really felt like that wasn't going to be very helpful. So it's just a different, interesting perspective, I guess.
I think Tom might have gotten bumped off.
Yeah, I see he's gone.
There's some storms coming through. I don't know if
it was storming really badly. I was very concerned that.
Yeah, here too. He's at the office,
which is probably worse.
You're back.
Like bumped off more in the office than Melissa's at the office too.
Oh, and he's gone. His camera was coming and going too. And I'm like, he's at his stand-up desk. He's got his 2 monitors. He's got his camera. Like, oh well. Although
She has challenges with her
in
setup.
her office.
Because I don't want to break down my home office setup because that's working
Yes.
for me so well. So I'm just kind of have this good enough setup here, and then I have to learn it again. I feel like every time I come because I'm not here that often, so it's kind of a pain. But
Yeah,
do what you got to do.
Yeah, that was one of the processes we went through. Was I was like, can everyone have a screen? So that if you come in with your laptop, you at least have 2, because we've all kind of set up nice things at home.
Yeah.
So I think everyone has at least one. Some setups have 2. But I know.
So everybody on your team is coming in some?
It varies. Tom is, been going back the most. And then I'll be like, I've got my days going in, and then like Hadley's like, well, if you're going to be there, I'll be there, and we'll work on that thing, so.
Now, Tom just prefers to be in the office.
Yeah, I think he actually said that he's got some neighbors that have loud disagreements sometimes.
Okay.
And
it's a little distracting.
Yeah, probably nerve-wracking. Yeah.
Probably a little unnerving, right?
Yeah, to hear that going on. Yeah. So, yeah.
So Barb, while we're on here together, can we quickly talk about, I'm sorry, so part of the complication of my setup is that my laptop camera doesn't work well, and I don't have a webcam, which is why this camera's off. And I could join by my phone, but it feels like more effort than I want to expend at this minute.
Yeah.
So, but I was hoping we could quickly talk about vetting the indicator 8 results with the parent groups.
Okay.
So there's all kind of complications about having to meet in person and then having a quorum with SAPAC. And so as a result of all those complications, Kara and her team, I'm assuming actually her bosses, have decided that they are not going to use SAPAC as the mechanism for developing the target. So they're going to be using state agency folks. Beth, is that accurate primarily?
Yes. Yeah, I think in the department.
Yeah, so to do the initial target setting, and that's because now they are under the gun related to timeline. So they're just in get her done kind of mode. But then I think that the effort to accommodate their requirement related to parent involvement is going to be to identify, do they say 2 to 3, Beth? Parent collaborative?
They just said several, yeah.
So the parent mentor group?
Yes, and Kenyatta and I talked about that.
Yeah, okay.
You don't have to know if anybody, on your advisory, your parents through the advisory committee.
And what we're talking about, Beth, is a 15-ish minute presentation comparable to what you just did of the target setting.
Hi, TJ.
Product, right?
Hi, can you put me in room 1? I got kicked off for SST 11. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, I would think it wouldn't be longer than that because they prepared fact sheets. So I think it would probably be them saying, here's the target that we're thinking, here's why.
Yeah. So would this be, we would just be inviting our members who are parents of students with disabilities? Like, would we want to sort of narrow down?
Yeah, Kara didn't make that.
Should we ask that question, Beth, at that upcoming
Yeah,
meeting?
because she didn't say that specifically, but it probably would.
Sorry. What about Cali has a family center. And I wonder what sort of groups of families they might have that they interact with. And they're on here. Gwen is the new sort of leader of that group. What's Gwen's last name? Also, Michelle Modal, who's on, is works with families through the Center for Deafness and Blindness. So
that'd be great. I
So
think
both
that
of-
that's what Kara was looking for, is to leverage your connections with these folks to identify the groups, and then maybe we could, make the ask of them if they
Yeah.
have a meeting or something.
So
Are they,
certainly the
is Kara looking
coalition
for
too.
us to do the presentation, or is someone from her shop gonna do it?
Yeah, I didn't get the impression that we would be doing the presentation.
Okay, got it. I'm sorry, I missed
But
that.
just like Dave said, I think we have to get some
Clarify.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
So
sorry
what,
about that.
so our statewide family engagement center, parents on our state advisory council as a whole, or just those that are families of students with disabilities, so we can do that subset if they want. And then I think the Ocala Family Center would be a good one to reach out, and Center for Deafness and Blindness, since they all, have outreach directly to families. And then the coalition is a must, I think, as well, as far as them pulling the other families, and then the parent mentors. I think that's good.
Yeah, so that's 4 solid groups, Beth. I think that's definitely a good start, and hopefully that's.
I have 5.
Okay, who'd I met? I got parent mentors, Ocala, the Center on Deafness for Deafness and Blindness, and Barb's statewide family council parents.
Then the coalition.
And the coalition.
Oh, coalition, thank you.
Yeah, and the coalition's the PTI, so I think
Right, the
that in the
PTI.
reporting to the federal government, they would want to be able to say that they.
Yeah, okay.
Tom, you're here. You good? We were a little worried. You're muted.
I was just
Did you have to
making
restart?
No. I was just bouncing around the rooms, making sure everyone had their materials. And I realized that I gave like a ton of directions and wanted to just make sure everyone.
That's what good facilitators do.
So everyone's
Tom,
good.
I like how you're multitasking and you're sorting those bookmarks for us at the same time.
Yeah, look what I did at lunch. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a mess, man. I was like, oh yeah, 2 boxes. Who cares? That'll be easy. And then I opened the box and I was like, oh my gosh, a lot of bookmarks can fit in one box.
We've been sitting on these bookmarks since like they were printed in February before COVID. And then we couldn't send them to the state library. And now they're like, we need them now in bunches of 50. So it's an all hands on deck. Everybody's doing it. My family did it. Tom, do you have, I should bring maybe some rubber bands in. Unless you guys know of a stash of good rubber bands. Kristen found this big box of rubber bands at
They're all dry.
and they were all falling apart. And we
Yeah,
were like,
I was gonna say, we have a ton in the supply closet up here, but if you pull them, they will snap. They're all like probably 20 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think people use rubber bands anymore.
Not like we used. Oh my goodness. That is another experience, you guys. I'm so glad our whole team was there when we sorted through everything. You really are hit with the fact that like we have a lot of stuff to be paper based.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorting through everybody's disc, just everything is like paper clips. Don't buy any supplies. Come downstairs and or figure out a way to make decorations out of them or something. Oh, goodness gracious.
I'll give him a couple extra minutes just because
yeah,
it took a second for people to kind of click around, get their stuff. So I'm gonna bring them back in like excuse me, in about 3 minutes.
So I'm wondering, Beth, do you want to pose this question, or want me to pose that question that we all just thought about parent groups? Do you want me to pose that question to this group and say that to them, or
ideas about?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
so these would be groups of parents that ODE would work with to get feedback, or to get, what is it again? Feedback on the results.
They're gonna
on the results or on the survey itself?
On the target they've set, right?
On the targets, that's right. It's target setting. Okay.
Yeah.
For the next 6 years, which I always forget when it starts. We've got four more cohorts to do. So 2025 through, I don't know.
Mhm.
I have it written down somewhere, but it'll be for the next round.
Okay. How's going good?
Doing good. We're almost there. I'm gonna request people have a minute to come back. So heads up if you start seeing people.
Okay.
We had just a couple in room 2.
Yeah, I popped in for a second, but they're old friends. I think Helen and Kim held it down.
That was, yeah. SST 11 has 4 people here, so that's why the room is so big.
Welcome back.
Hello. TJ has such a great photograph for her cover there.
Thank you. Those are my friends' twins. They are 4.5 and they just started preschool this week and we're having a lot of fun.
I was gonna say, that is fun.
Awesome. So thanks for coming back. Thanks for having some good conversations and stuff. As a lot of you had popped around, I think this whether it was a surprise or confirmation, people are finding that the data was kind of trending in the right direction, which is good. We're so often faced with kind of dire situations or just really insurmountable looking things. So we have about 6, 7, 8 minutes to have kind of an open discussion with our experts here to kind of share what your group thought about, if there was one of those questions that was particularly poignant to you or just something that came up. Now would be the time to share it, and I would hope that maybe someone from each or one idea from each group could come out here. So you could throw your cameras on if you're up for it and share what you saw in the data.
One of the things that we saw in the data and we thought were really positive is that when you talk about the tier 1 supports, right, we're doing a great job of reaching like 80% of our families, you know, and we look at communication, we look at school culture. I mean, that's a great celebration, right? Love to celebrate the stuff in the data, but maybe the coaching piece is, you know, how do we capture 100% of families, right? Because that's the goal, right? So what are we doing in the tier 2, tier 3, and let's have it, you know, how can we support that communication in tier 2 and 3, and what should it look like and sound like? And when it comes to welcoming environment, you know, how can we, and being a partner in the IEP, obviously there's going to be some additional training and support that need to happen to get so that all families feel as partners on the IEP process. So I thought it was a big celebration, but there's always work to do. So, and our group kind of, that's what our big discussion was. And that was our big takeaway.
Heidi, maybe to add to that, we talked about the school climate slide, and a highlight was 95% of families felt welcome. Then we said, but the question next to it said, are all cultures welcomed? And it was definitely a lower percent. And we said, maybe that's because families aren't aware of what other cultures, because there was a large not sure. 0% said disagree. So maybe some communication around and just informing families of the cultures present in the district.
Thank you. It's an interesting discrepancy to point out.
And I think that along with that is, you know, again, looking at those, you know, demographics of where we're getting responses that we're underrepresented in. So thinking about strategies that, you know, first is, you know, just getting folks engaged and responding to the survey so that we have, you know, better or equal representation across those different race categories.
Any thoughts from groups 1 or 2? Or others? Well, keep thinking those thoughts. Feel free to throw them out at any time. This isn't going to be the last time we look at this stuff, so we'll have more opportunities to kind of find those kind of interesting discrepancies and things that we might be able to address in our work. I think this also might take on new meaning when schools and districts get kind of like their data specifically to them. And on that, I was wondering, I think that either Dr. Boone or Beth had something to kind of wrap us up on this thought.
Well, sure, I'll jump in here and help me make sure I'm sort of stating everything correctly. But I think there is, so the target setting on thresholds for the for indicator 8 for Ohio need to be sort of calibrated and set moving forward. And so there is a need to be able to get feedback and input from some groups of families with a vested interest in that. So as you think about your organization or groups that you work with, who would you recommend? I mean, Larissa and the coalition. I mean, you came to mind for me first as like the coalition and bringing together a group of families to provide input on that. But as you think about that, I think that's a way that we can be helpful to sort of point to some groups of families or organizations that can bring groups of families together to provide that feedback for the department. I think the department will be doing that piece, not I think probably Kara Waldron's office. So that's not something we're facilitating. I think we just want to be helpful in saying, hey, we'd like to point you to some groups of families. So any thoughts on that from you all? Kim, is my mic not working?
Sorry, that was for Helen. Helen was thinking she had said something before. No, I heard you. I apologize. As soon as I put that, I'm like, I should have let Barb know that wasn't for her. I'm so sorry.
It happened once today already, so I was all thinking it was me again. What about the Family Center at Ocala? Is Gwen here?
Gwen and Michelle might have stepped off.
All right. Well, we will reach out to them. Other groups. We have a state advisory council for the statewide family engagement center. Many of the families on our council have kids receiving special education services. So I think we're going to say, hey, we can bring that group of folks together. Other groups of families. Oh, Terry, you're unmuted.
I'm not unmuted. I think I'm okay. Also, your parent mentors, they have groups that they work with too. And then
yes,
SAPAC, any of those representatives that have small groups and constituents back in their regions might give you a lot of diversity and obviously the multicultural supports through the coalition and things like that definitely can help better target different populations as well. So.
This is Larissa. I just wanted to say that I'm sure that the coalition would be more than willing to, provide support in that area.
Awesome.
And the Department of Developmental Disabilities has their family groups too, so you could move outside the educational area.
Great, thanks, Terry.
Cool. Well, we'll keep thinking about that as it comes up. I want to invite you all, though, to either in the chat or out loud really quick, thank Bev for her time today, and she'll continue to be a resource for us if we need her, I hope. And thank you for being with us and giving that great presentation, Bev.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
Please
Beth.
reach out as questions come up, and hopefully you'll invite me back sometime.
We'd love to have you. Thanks again.
Have a great afternoon.
Now we do have a half hour left together, and we're gonna blast through it. So if you need bathroom, coffee stuff, please go for it. Because we gotta keep moving a little bit. I don't have a break built in, I realized. So we're all adults here. Take care of yourself, I hope. And I want to just start a conversation really quick, because I think this is simultaneously like the most productive thing that most productive part of our network, and also kind of like some of the hardest to get the wheels going on. So I really hope that you're ready to have a conversation with me, get those wheels turning on our work groups for this year. So I guess I should move the PowerPoint. Here's an idea of what work groups have looked like in the past here. So we have our PBIS work group. There's a meeting on Friday. I think that one's going to stick around. We've had our early literacy and family engagement work group, who's continued to make like really useful materials and go out and present with those materials. So I know that's been like a multi-year work group. I don't know if that's in a place to keep continuing to evolve or other things, but we've also had kind of these ones that time and place and things at Great Meetings work group last year, a whole year of getting a training put together that we just believe in, and now is paying off. We're getting invited all over places to share it. We got remote learning group work group that highlighted some great resources during the times of remote learning the last couple of school years. We've also had work groups work on policy initiatives when the department has come to us and asked for things such as like supporting or giving feedback on frameworks or different types of policy documents that they're working on. And then we've also had some, really this network got us started with making videos and stuff for all the time. That's where, you know, all those ideas, we got to make videos, we have short videos for this and that. And now if you go on our website, there's videos all over the place highlighting things because of the ideas that started here. So like I said, I think we'll probably keep one or two of these. I think that we've evolved into a place where you know that we're in a different place starting school this year than last year and the year before. And you know what your regions need, or you know what you're hearing. So I want to have a conversation about that a little bit. Another piece of data, though, to share before we start just spitballing here is some things from our spring SST family engagement final survey that we do every year, the big one after the May meeting. Some things that came out of that people are asking for broad, like we want to keep building capacity in these areas, were incorporating input of families and students with disabilities into our resources. So moving really towards that engagement piece and not just doing things to students and families that we think are good, but having that influence, expanding services to new areas of your region, whether that means working with a school district that might have been hard to get in last time, or something of that nature, or working with other partners where maybe you've have made some connections with education adjacent organizations, if you will. And then also we're continuing down this thread, and I think it's an important thread. It continues to be in the news. It continues to be kind of topical, for good or for worse, understanding how race, identity, and experience may influence a family's engagement in their education. So that's things we said last spring that we want to keep learning about. Now, on the flip of that, we did a survey of the 323 school districts in Ohio that are in moderate or intensive support status. You actually might be getting those reports for your region as we speak or in the next couple hours. But the top things that were requested as PD items from districts in support status: family engagement in mental health and trauma, family engagement early literacy, family engagement in middle school, family engagement in high school, and building relationships with families. I want you to think about this little bit of data we have. I want you to think about what's going on in your region, what you're hearing, what you're having conversations about. And I want you to think about the indicator 8 data as well. And I want you to follow me here. I'm going to drop this in the link, this link really quick, just so we can kind of all work together at one time. We're literally just going to throw out ideas for work groups, see what rises to the top, okay? One idea we had also was that we have to redo the logic model, and doing it together, doing it from the ground up is the best way to do that. So maybe that's something we'd like to do. Maybe we'd really like to keep focusing on race and identity in education. I don't know. It's up to you. This is your community of practice. But I'd love for you to follow to the Mentimeter. Let me just make sure this works also. Yes, it should work. And you can go to menti.com. Oh, this is actually the part you need. Sorry, I gave you the part I need. You go to menti.com and use this code. Yes, Barbara, great point. We do have some new people here. This is all voluntary. So don't stress. But this is a great time to kind of apply the knowledge that we're trying to expand in these meetings. So sorry, if you go to menti.com and use the code 7425-3853, I want you to just start putting in the ideas for work groups that you have. I'm sorry.
Are folks getting in?
It says that it's closed and the presenter needs to open voting.
Oh no. I'm here right now. I'm sorry. Let me figure out how to do that. What? Uh-oh. Why can't I open the voting? Is it by any chance open now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. My apologies.
Thanks, Tom.
So I see someone dropped in there about the grant agreement. I'm wondering if you are more privy than we are to what some of the priorities in that, the specific priorities in that grant agreement are that we can connect to. If you could break that out for us, but if not, we'll keep that in mind just as is.
Tom, I shared it with you yesterday. I emailed it to you.
Oh, did you? Uh-oh. Whoops, whoopsie daisy.
It's okay.
Thank you.
I know you've been busy.
Got some interesting things coming in. Keep throwing ideas in there, but I'm just going to talk for a second, and feel free to jump in and talk back at me.
You're teasing us, Tom, because you only gave us like a 25-word limit or 25-letter limit. I'm like, I had to keep deleting and like rewriting what I'm trying to say.
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to see. Well, first of all, I apologize. I was trying to do something that's seemingly outside of my ability right now, and it's coming to light. But
it's awesome.
You could see things that we could see things that like can be sort of grouped together, I think, here.
That's what I'm thinking too. I also want to say, hey, we made it through 90% of the meeting before I had a major catastrophe. So come on, stick with me here for 15 more minutes. Some things I am seeing here though, is that so there's clearly a lean towards some type of cultural learning, or like developing ideas around whether it is thinking about, as our very good friend at the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center, Ann Ishamara, talks about groups that might be out groups at school or have some type of barrier to overcome in participation simply because of identity. And I think we're saying like that in a lot of different ways over here. And I think we could think hard about, how do we build our capacity in that way? Is that learning for us? Is that thinking about, strategic training for other people? School districts. Another thing I'm seeing here is alignment to SST priorities, things that can connect projects to other work, connect to the grant agreement. What's in there gets done, right? So making sure that the projects we're doing are there. PBS, I think we're going to stick with PBS. Mental health, that's a good one. I'm also seeing a little bit about continuous improvement and stuff. So this is kind of interesting. Because the character limit was off, I'm wondering if other people are either seeing patterns in here or wanted to just say out loud kind of what they were feeling or what they were thinking in terms of work groups.
I don't know what this would look like, but just I was kind of thinking like if there'd be a way to like, I don't know if it'd be a line or like kind of look at all the different things, like today's program or today's process that we looked at, NNPS's process, P4L, like they all have similar components, but then they all like definitely could be used in different situations. So maybe like looking at the three of those, and I don't know about aligning them or determining like combining resources or something, just to have like more comprehensive or options. Does that make sense at all? Or
no, it does to me.
I like that one. I'd help lead that one.
Yeah, I just thinking like I could use what we did today when thinking about how to like create an NNPS plan, because they don't, like, some of those components are missing, but then I wanted to add in the keys when you were talking today. So like,
yeah.
And then there's lots of times I want them to redesign an activity with NNPS, which is part of P4L. So I thought if I could, I mean, I know where all the different components are, but it might be easier if we like, I don't know, mapped it out or made just even like links to each other or crosswalk. I don't know.
I think a crosswalk with like maybe even like one needs assessment and
Sure, like
I don't know, Title One
I don't
or
know.
other.
We've
Yeah.
got some great things, and I don't want one to get pushed aside because we like this one better. And I don't know about everybody else, but I always feel like I have to like use one and then like implement other parts. So yeah, that's just what I was thinking, but I couldn't fit that in 25 characters. So
That also to me kind of fits in with this idea of like, first of all, coaching simulations is interesting. As someone who's gone through a lot of coaching trainings and stuff, I hate but also love the value that simulation or role playing can bring. And I think that like these are not such far apart ideas, right? Understanding kind of the interconnectedness of all these tools and kind of practicing or simulating in your head when we would do what. I think that is, we're drawing kind of a line through some of those things there. So that's exciting. Other ideas?
This is Kim. I know that OEC created a couple of different resources for families of students who are moving off of the alternate assessment due to the decision-making tool, but it's more of like a Q&A format. And it's okay. It's okay. But, and not to offend anyone who was involved in the creation of those, but I'm wondering if there was something like, there's ramifications for not graduating. I mean, you're graduating a completely different way than your peers if you are on the alternate assessment and extended standards. So it's kind of explaining those and supporting those to families so they can be at the table and they can be a part of that decision-making tool, as big as it is, but they should be better informed decision makers in that process. But I think that's something that that is an idea I'm just putting out there.
No, I think that's a great idea because I keep thinking like we talk a lot about federal graduation rate with districts, but maybe prepping parents or being prepared to talk to parents in a year and a half or 2 years when that comes out, just having some resources to help them understand that, because that will, I mean, definitely freak out a lot of families. I love that idea.
Cool. Well, I also saw a bunch of stuff roll in the chat. Some other things pertaining to ideas like equity or opportunity for all, gaps in education and services due to COVID, and like kind of how to address family concerns about those things, anxiety, things like that. We got this stuff up here. I'm wondering, and I'm looking for kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down situation here. If I kind of maybe condensed, pulled your thoughts, kind of try to shape this a little bit more, and we could either if send it out in the follow-up email to see if there's some to either vote on, or if we whittled it down to some to really just elect into at that point, if that would be a good course of action for people moving forwards. Seeing, I got thumbs up. There's one thumbs up, a couple head nods. Well, first of all, thank you for that. This can be kind of there's so much we could do and there's so much we want to do that I know that this conversation is always sometimes difficult to muddle through. I know we had it kind of quick and I messed up the Mentimeter, but thank you for participating. And I want to just keep us chugging right along because I know you are all busy people and you've been such great partners today and collaborators with us. Couple just last quick things. I'm pretty sure that we've talked you to death about this, but just one more time. Our Family Engagement Leadership Summit's coming up on September 17th. A bunch of people here are in it, presenting in it, because we do great work and we got to highlight it. I know that schools are getting back into session. You might be, starting to get in with some of your district contacts. Maybe you also have colleagues at the SST that are not super familiar with the family engagement stuff going on. Feel free to share this. Please register. Please stop by if you can. It's going to be a good day of learning. We got a lot of stuff going on. Looking forward to all of our state support team presentations that we'll be having. So just one last plug about that. You can register at Ohio Families Engage osu.edu/summit. I'll drop that in the chat in just a second. And the last part today, this part's really important to me. I've been a part of this network a long time. I know that I don't know, I have massive projections that you all are very tired of hearing me talk and that things are not going to go well every time we have these meetings. So I need your feedback. I need you to let me know what's working, what's not working. Did you learn something today? Do you need something different next time to learn better? So if you wouldn't mind also just taking this kind of exit ticket for us, it really helps me. I do use it every time that I plan and between between sessions. So please fill that out. But with that, I just really appreciate you all. And this was a great meeting. It was a great way to hit the ground running. I feel like we accomplished a lot today. I feel like we got to meet new people, and I hope that you all have great starts to the school year.